And we are live for the first time in 2024. Man, this is Heat Ratio Live, HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. I'm your host. As always, man, like a nice kickback, casual conversation that talk about all things when it comes to local sports, Philly sports, and obviously just national sports. And a look back too. Like I said all the time, one big thing I've always wanted to do is just not talk about today, also talk about yesterday as well. And this is the first week we start having some guests. Like I told you, we are going to have guests, and I have with me at 11:15 tonight in about 10 minutes. We're going to get Michael KB on from 97.3 ESPN, Sixers writer. And as always, off another win, which is great to get him on. You can follow him at the real Mike KB on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We have possibly another basketball guest tomorrow night. Still working on that. And Thursday, we have the great Chris Franklin joining us to talk about little Eagles from NJ.com. Again, at C Franklin News on Twitter is unbelievable. Great beat writer, somebody that you want to follow. And my man Adam checking in says The Rock versus Reigns. Who you got, Tony? Happy New Year. Adam, Happy New Year as always, brother. It's real, man. I appreciate it. And same goes to you. I hope you had a fantastic 2023 and you have an even better 2024. Like I always say, health and happiness to everybody. So a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. I have a question. I know everybody's talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're going to get into the Eagles. But before we do that, let's take care of some business. As always, like and subscribe to the page, Heat Ratio Sports YouTube page. More things playing, more things on the pike. Had a great conversation with somebody today. Could be a really interesting show starting up in the next couple of weeks with a great personality. She's fantastic. Can't wait to get into that as well. Big surprise in store for February. And as always, if you want to get involved in the show, we're here till 1 a.m. Eastern time. You can comment whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on Twitter, okay? But here's the best part. There's a StreamYard link right there. I want this highly interactive. I keep saying that. And what's great is people have been calling in. I'm treating this like a radio program. No video, just audio only. It literally just have to click the link on your phone. You will get backstage, type in your name, and I will get you on. And we will talk anything you want. Doesn't matter. And one of the questions before we even get started, I want you guys to think about is obviously the topic of the day and the topic of the week is this epic collapse that we're seeing right now with the Philadelphia Eagles. And it is epic, right? It is epic. We've been through this before. We've been through this with Andy Reid. We've been through this with Chip Kelly. But Andy Reid, the tenure was so long. But the question I have to ask you is it the head coach or is it the team? And honestly, I asked that. Not only is it the head coach or the team, but is the head coach or the quarterback? And I don't mean that just for the Eagles. Okay, I want you to think about this logically, right? We see a lot of different head coaches in the National Football League being able to win. One guy to me who should be coach of the year, we've talked about him on this program, Kevin Stefanski, has done nothing but win with whoever was at the quarterback position. Look, not only losing the quarterback, but also losing his top running back and probably the biggest leader on his team, right? So again, when I talk about that, I want you to think about that. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you're building a team, is it more important to get the right head coach or is it more important to get the right quarterback? And that's what I want to hear about. I want to hear which one is it? Because that's going to be the most important part when you're building a team, right? That's going to be the most important part. Again, what way do you want to build a franchise? And I'll be honest with you, we're going to get into this all night, but looking at everything as a whole, okay? Look at everything as a whole. It sure as heck seems that the quarterback is not the most important. It's the coach. Now, I'd love to hear everybody's analysis on that because looking around the league, I mean, look at Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin. He was able to win with Kenny Pickett. He's able to win with Mason Rudolph, right? Even in Cincinnati, you're having a good showing with Browning, with Taylor. I mean, like you think about it, and it makes you really wonder. Makes you really wonder if it's the quarterback in the scheme. I mean, or the head coach in the scheme, or is it just the quarterback? So I want you to think about that. I want you to ponder that. While you're pondering that too, I want to ask another question when we talk about the NBA, because in about 5 minutes, we're going to have Michael KB coming on, the real Mike KB, for 97.3 ESPN. Does a fantastic job covering the Sixers on all formats. Check him out. Make sure you follow him. I'm telling you, he drops something every single day. You can pull it up right now. He's always talking about something. But are we missing the boat with appreciating what's going on right now with Joel Embiid because we're so infatuated with what's going wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles? I really, really, really want to hear your take on this, because I think it's something even myself, listen, I have a problem with it too. I'm so fixated on what's going on with these Philadelphia Eagles that I'm not even worried about what's going on with historic season of Joel Embiid. And I need to understand. Am I the only one? Am I the only one? Oh man, Tommy says, do you think Sirianni is on the hot seat? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. 100%. 100%. There's no and, if, or buts about it. He has to be. He has to be. Give me 1 second. So I'm posting right now. I'm posting the StreamYard link on Twitter. So if anybody wants to call in, you could call in live, get on, audio only. Like I said, no video. Just give me a call. Right on your phone, man. I'll pop you on. There's no wait times here. The only time that you're going to wait, okay, is when I have a guest on. And that's what I'm going to have on very, very shortly. I will have Michael KB talking some Philadelphia 76ers. So, again, to your question, Tommy, about the hot seat, here's the way I think about this, and I've always thought about this. For coaching sports, myself, for being in the sports business for so many years, it's very hard to rebuild a culture, and it's very hard to rebuild trust. And if you're not able to coach through adversity, you're not able to get your players to buy in, you're never going to be, especially if you once did and now you can't. So think about this realistically. Everything going on right now is a microcosm of Nick Sirianni. Think about that. Everything going on right now is a microcosm of Nick Sirianni. And I say that, okay? I say that because, again, Nick Sirianni is the guy who oversees the team. He is the guy in the film room. He is the guy with the culture. He is the guy with the scheme. Remember, he was an offensive guy, right? He was an offensive guy. So you have to remember that, right? So as we're sitting here all night, I want you to start thinking about that. I want you to think about what is more important. What is more important? Is it the head coach or is it the quarterback? Because like I've said, we see a lot of teams in the NFL that are winning with a great coach, not just the quarterback. Okay, so just let's remember that. So think about that as we go into this next segment, because listen, first time in 2024, we get to talk a Sixers win on this show on HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. I'm your host. As always, make sure you're following at Heat Ratio Sports. If you want to get involved in the conversation, very easy. There is a link. This is just like a radio program, man, except there's no hold times. There's no waits. All you had to do was click the link and boom, you're going to be live on the line. And right now we're going to talk a little 76ers because, again, Joel Embiid. Again, Joel Embiid, a guy who I think is, again, not getting enough credit. And I don't think it's direct. I don't think it's direct. What I think it is we're just so infatuated in this football town. And right now, before I bring the guest on, those Sixer stats posted. Joel Embiid posts 31, 15, and 10 in 31 minutes and 27 seconds of playing time tonight. Persta had the only player ever to post at least 30, 15, and 10 in fewer minutes played was also Joel Embiid. 31, 15, 10, and 29, 47 on 1-3-22, almost a year to the date against Houston. Amazing. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. And again, we're going to bring in the real Mike KB on right now. He's live on the line. And when he's ready, he's going to come on. Mike, if you want to unmute your microphone. And Mike, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks again for taking the time out for me and the audience. Again, this is Michael KB at the real Mike KB, 97.3 ESPN. You see him up there on the screen right there. Make sure you go follow him. I'm telling you right now, you will not be disappointed every single day, whether it's a Sixers game, whether it's post-game, whether it's pre-game. The man is all over it. And Mike, I just talked about Joel Embiid, about that stat. I know you heard me, and I know you know it. And I got to ask you, because I feel like indirectly, this dude is having such a historic season right now, and we're not even paying attention in Philadelphia enough because we're so infatuated with the Eagles.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right, and I think it's two-pronged. Obviously, part of it is the infatuation with the Eagles. Football is always going to be number one in this town. A lot to talk about with that team. But part of it, I think, is the Sixers fan base, too, just being a little bit jaded. And understandably so, and that's not to take away from anything that Joel is doing, but I think a big portion of the fan base is just kind of at that point, like, let me know when it happens in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, let me know when this happens in the postseason. We've seen the regular season dominance, year in, year out. The fact that Joel's been able to take his game to another level this year after, winning the MVP award last year, I think it is really impressive. And I think, as the season wears on, NFL season wears down and playoffs start to approach, I think more people, both obviously locally and nationally, will start to pay attention to the Sixers and will start to pay attention to, what Joel is doing. Because night in, night out, we're seeing him play the best basketball of his career. And like you said in the lead in here, it's not only the best of his career, it's some of the best that we've seen from a center, in the history of the NBA. He's doing stuff that hasn't been seen since the days of Wilt, since the days of Kareem, so it really is impressive what he's been able to do. And I do agree that I think it is going a little bit kind of under the radar, both locally and even on a national level too.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. Even on a national level, and for someone, we went through every year, right, until we finally won the MVP. About, is it Jokic? Is it Embiid? Is it Jokic? Is it Embiid? And I, for one, I went back and said, listen, I watched that championship run, and I said, I downplayed Jokic. I didn't think he was that good. Like, I not saying he was that good, but I thought they were really elevating him to a level that I didn't think he was worthy of until I watched it. And I was like, wow, this dude is really good. But now, what has changed in your opinion? Again, we're live on the line right now with Michael KB at the real Mike KB of 97.3 ESPN. In the comments, you will see his author page, his bio page. Click on it, check him out so you are infatuated with his work like I am. And what changes here, Mike? I mean, obviously Nick Nurse comes in, and from my eyes, and I want to hear from you, but from my eyes, he's not stagnant anymore. There's so much ball movement that there wasn't in the Doc Rivers system, and I feel like now he has more freedom, and he's almost resting while he's playing because he's only playing like 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, Tony, that's a great point. He's doing a good job of, load managing himself just by being so dominant early on in the game and in the minutes that he is playing, scoring, more points than minutes played per game or throughout the season, which is crazy. And I think you nailed the main thing. Obviously, some of it is scheme related for sure. And this Sixers offense, there is absolutely a lot more motion and a lot more secondary motion. So, there'll be the primary action, whatever's happening with the ball. But then when Joel has the ball, instead of a lot of guys just standing around on the perimeter and kind of watching. You're seeing a lot of that, back screens, basket cuts, things of that nature that you didn't see quite as much during, either the Doc Rivers or the Brett Brown era. And then part of it too is personnel and roster related. The past season and a half with James Harden here, by default, a lot of the offense was going to be James Harden-esque. It was going to feature either, isolations for James Harden or two-man game pick and roll situations with him and Joel. And that kind of takes away, the opportunities and leads to kind of some of that standing around and just kind of ball watching that you saw a lot over the past couple seasons under Doc Rivers. So I think it's a combination of, now that Harden's gone, you have a little bit more explosive, dynamic, quicker guard, obviously, in Maxey, and then Nick Nurse coming in and putting in an offense that is more motion based and more secondary action based. And I think the combination of that, plus Joel is just taking his passing to another level this season. I definitely think you were talking about Jokic leading in. I think that Joel is motivated by watching Jokic. Obviously, Jokic won the 2 MVPs first, then Joel got his. Now last year, Jokic won the championship, the MVP Finals award. Now it's, Joel kind of watching that, being like, man, that has to be me next. And I think both of them, they feed off of each other. And I think seeing how good of a passer and how much Jokic is able to get all of his guys involved and how that benefited Denver, in that championship run last year, I think Joel has emulated some of that and seen hey, spreading the ball around, getting everybody involved really kind of benefits the team throughout the course of a season. So I think that's also part of the factor and why we've seen this offense and Joel specifically look better this year.
Yeah, listen, very, very valid points. It's almost crazy when you think about it because, whether we loved him or hated him when we first got James Harden, we were always star chasing. We always had to get that other guy. And when he did come in the beginning, it was like, wow, we finally got somebody. We finally had this guy. And then he kind of, rescinded back to the old James Harden that everybody knows. And it just didn't work. And now you get, everybody thought was just kind of like a bogus trade that was just getting trash. But he really did, to quote the great Mark Zumoff, they did turn garbage to gold because now, I mean, they took a collective unit of pieces that not only are only role players, but they seem very integral, into this success. And on top of that, this free agent signing Kelly Oubre, who nobody even is talking about. They're 8-0 when those two were in the start line together. That was from StatMuse, but just seeing what he's provided, the energy, he is almost, in my opinion, everything we wanted PJ Tucker to be, that he just wasn't. He just wasn't for us.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. That's a great point. And all those guys that they brought in, like you said, it on paper, it wasn't necessarily overwhelming because you're trading away, obviously a perennial all-star, a future Hall of Famer, a top 75 all-time guy in James Harden. And you're getting back, kind of a bunch of role players and older role players at that. But all the guys that they brought back really fit well, in a Nick Nurse system and alongside the two key guys here in Philly, which obviously is Joel and Tyrese Maxey. You get back versatile wing players, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, guys that can stretch the floor, that can play a little bit of defense, guard a couple positions, play a couple different positions on offense, and just do the smaller stuff and fit in around, the two huge stars that you have in offensive guys in Joel and Tyrese. And then a lot of it, obviously, too, was just preserving. I think one thing that's it's not getting talked about a ton right now because it's still so early in the season. But moving forward now, we did just cross into 2024, which means that next month will be the trade deadline. And then in the offseason, the Sixers have, I don't know off the top of my head exactly, but they have a ton of cap space, among the highest in the league moving forward. They have almost nobody on the books. And part of the trade was just clearing and preserving that future flexibility, like all the signings, including the Kelly Oubre signing, which to your point has proven to be, one of the bigger steals of the offseason, considering that he's, a 1-year minimum deal that they signed him in, I forget, but I think it was late August, well after all of the other guys signed. And it was kind of at that point where you're like, oh, I kind of forgot this guy is even still out there and available. It was so surprising that, this is a guy that averaged 20 points a game last season. Granted, it was on a really bad Hornets team in Charlotte that not a lot of people paid attention to. But having that kind of firepower to use, he started tonight, like you said, they're 8-0 when he starts, but also when he comes off the bench and can give you that kind of scoring, it's something that they haven't had. But he's on a 1-year deal. All the guys they brought back in that Harden trade are on expiring deals. So a big part of Daryl Morey and the front office's plan was to, try to maximize this season around, Joel still playing at this MVP level, Tyrese Maxey taking a huge step forward. You have an open window now, but you also preserve this window moving forward by having just Joel and Tyrese to move forward with, and then a ton of cap space to kind of try to lure, like you said, star hunting, to borrow Brett Brown's term from back in the day, but to just have all this extra space to potentially lure guys with, either leading up to the trade deadline if a deal presents itself for a player that they want to trade for, that then they want to extend, or just in the offseason, guys that they could bring in. So there's a lot of financial flexibility that came with that deal, in addition to role players that just fit in really nicely into Nick Nurse's system here.
Yeah, I listen. It's a really good time to be a Sixers fan. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Just number one, you're right. Nobody talks about the Oubre thing, probably because it did happen late. But he's actually, to me, he's like Joel's protector in a sense. He's that gritty guy. He's the garbage guy, but he could do so much more that I never even realized. As far as I didn't know he had that kind of scoring ability when you needed it, and you need people like that. We've never really had that. That's the thing. Even guys like you said, like Nick Batum, who's a really underrated shooter. I mean, he's got such a quick release. I've never seen it before. Like, you obviously have Steph, but Batum can really get it. Here's a guy who, he pondered retirement. And now he felt rejuvenated enough to really stick it out. Morris is another guy, local kid, right? At the later stage of his career, but I mean, he's given them so much, and I think you nailed it. I mean, this is Nick Nurse's MO. I was always a Nick Nurse fan, and he was always a player's coach. And, he does things, again, if anybody listening to not cover, make sure you follow the Blue Coats Beat podcast. I do myself with Coach Joe for the Delaware Blue Coats. And we had Sonny Hill on, and we talked to him about, kind of what Nick Nurse does. And Nick Nurse is at the Delaware Blue Coats game. He's out there, and he's a normal guy. He's not asking to sit up in the in the suites, or he's a normal guy. And I think that's contagious. Now, you did talk about the trade deadline. So, like, just you as yourself, your own idea of what do you want them to do? Is there somebody out there? You hear Donovan Mitchell's name, Zach LaVine, Anobi's already been traded now to the Knicks, but is there somebody that you're worth giving up all those assets for, or do you think we roll the dice and just go in the offseason and do what we can do?
See, they're in a nice position because they have the option, if something presents itself, sure, they could jump on it, and they have the cap space to back it up with an extension. Off the names that pop up a lot, obviously, like you just said, Tony, OG is already off the board, headed to New York, although technically he's still going to be a free agent in the offseason, unless he signs an extension. But none of the names to me are worth, at least none of the names that are being commonly mentioned right now. If we're talking, one of the guys from the Bulls, like a Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, even a DeRozan, like a Pascal Siakam in Toronto, some of those guys, none of those guys to me are really worth giving up a ton for. I don't know how much they really elevate the ceiling of the team this year, but between now and 6 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, when the deadline comes up, there's always some players that end up popping up. And if it's even just smaller moves for the time being that shore up, the roster on the back end, or add, another backup big guy for some matchups where Paul Reed is, a little bit overmatched size wise or something like that. Or if you just bring in another, reliable shooter as a guard spot, or a ball handler off the bench that's not, not a star guy, but just guys that you really shore up the roster. Because the way the East is, and honestly, the league this year is, I mean, on paper right now, the Celtics are probably better than the Sixers in a series. The Bucks would probably give them an issue, but there's not too many teams in the conference that I think that the Sixers and, people watching wouldn't feel pretty confident with the Sixers in. And I don't think you need to overreact and make kind of a splash move just for the sake of doing it, especially when, you're set up good for this year and you have, all this cap space moving forward, like we were talking about for the future. Still have Joel in his late 20s playing, better each year at an MVP level. Tyrese Maxey still probably a couple years away from even getting into his prime as a player, as just a 23-year-old kid, first year as like a full-time, ball handler, playmaker for his team. I think the future is still really bright, and you don't want to, necessarily compromise that to overdo a move in the short term. So I guess that's kind of like the long-winded way of saying none of the names right now that have been like floated around to me are worth like giving up some of that space or giving up some of that draft capital. But if one pops up, sure. If not, I think you kind of just make some smaller moves, specifically, another backup guard, another backup big guy, and roll the dice with this season and see, if you can't get farther this year with this roster than you have over the past few seasons.
Yeah, it's kind of the way I feel too. I mean, I like you said. I mean, there's nobody to me that just strikes me as unfathomable. Like this guy,
Right.
right? And I think that's kind of the way the NBA is right now. And I think that's why it's so important to really blossom your young talent. Which I love seeing Tyrese Maxey take it to the next level. Is that enough? I'm not sure. Now, Adam checking in as a question. He says, "Do you think they will try to move Tobias at some point, obviously, because he is on the last year of his deal?" But I'll tell you what, I'm not a Tobias guy, Mike, but he's actually, I feel like he's played the best we've seen him as a Sixer this year in this offense.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. He is playing well. And Tobias is funny because it's been pretty much any time I've checked in with the front office or like any league sources over the past few years in terms of the Sixers' stance with Tobias Harris in terms of a trade, it's pretty much always the same thing I hear back. And it's basically like they're willing to entertain offers. He's not necessarily on the table, but like if something happened, they would be willing to do it. But at the same time, they're not actively shopping him. They love him in the locker room. They love, still what he brings to the floor as, a third or fourth option on a team. And at this point, it's funny because finally now it's at the point where his contract is somewhat valuable as an expiring deal. Across the league, we've been waiting for this kind of for 5 years to the point where like, hey, maybe we could move off this deal. And I do think that there is, teams that are interested in him across the league right now. I don't think the Sixers are like super eager, and I think it's the same situation. I think that they'll, entertain phone calls. They'll listen to offers and see if there's something they could get done. The stance I think kind of remains the same, where they're not looking to take back a lot of salary past this season unless it's a guy that they really want to commit to, which, as of right now, it doesn't seem like there's anyone out there, like we were kind of just saying. But it's something that, like, if one popped up, I think they would be willing to part with Tobias. But if not, I think they're perfectly happy keeping him, in the starting lineup, having him in the locker room and letting that contract, ride out and come off the books this summer and then go from there.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think this is the first time, and I've always been a very reactionary person. I've always been a very impatient person. I still think, I look at the time when, oh my God, so many years ago, I got killed when I said I would trade Ben Simmons for my God, for Paul George for PG-13. This was like Ben Simmons' second year. Everybody thought I was nuts. I'm like, look, I'm telling you, this dude does not have it. Win now. I always want to win now, but I don't see. I'm actually patient this year. Like I really like what I see, and I look at now that I do a lot of coverage for the Blue Coats, and I see these young guys. You see Ricky Council just going off, and young player, Lofton, young player, right? Tariq, young player. And again, they're all very athletic, and it makes you get excited that possibly we can actually grow a team to be very competitive. Because let me ask you this: what do you think? Not to put you on the spot, but the window for Joel Embiid is, I mean, listen, he is unbelievable, but eventually a guy that big with his knees, his extensive injury history, he's going to hit a wall eventually. What do you think the window is for him to win in this town in Philadelphia?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's fair. And I think, at this point, like you said, he's rounding 30. Next year, he'll be 30. Still playing, honestly, the best he's ever played. So I don't think that it's like necessarily something that we're staring down like the end of Joel Embiid's prime or anything like that. But I do think, given that, the size, the potential for injuries moving forward, that it's probably a little bit shorter than, say if he were a guard or, a small forward or something along that nature. But I think Joel has another 3 to 4 years in him where he could be looked at to be the lead guy on a championship team. He has shown it's funny because the narrative coming into this season has shifted completely surrounding Joel Embiid. I think a lot of that has to do with the play of Tyrese Maxey and then just how well the team's been overall. But heading into the season, at least nationally, all you would hear is, is Joel Embiid the next star player that's going to ask for a trade? After this Harden thing, is Joel going to force his way out of town? And even after the trade happened and they didn't get a star player back in the deal, a lot of the reaction pieces that I read online or some, the talk shows on sports were, the Sixers didn't get a star player back. Is Joel going to be frustrated? And is he the next guy out of town? And there was like odds on the Knicks being the next team that he was going to play for. And it was all this conversation heading into the season. And none of it was really about how he was going to follow up the MVP campaign or like how good the Sixers were going to be. And now we're, 2 months later into the season, and the narrative is completely looks like looks like he's going to win his second MVP. Can the Sixers finally get to the conference finals with him and Tyrese Maxey? Is Tyrese Maxey the best number 2 guy he's had in his career, which is a fair question at this point. So it's just funny how much it shifted. And for anything, internally from Joel, there's never been dissatisfaction on his end. So I don't think, barring things could always change, things could always happen, but he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to be looking for an exit from the city. And I think obviously the team's going to want to keep him around. So I think we still got 3 to 4 more years of him potentially being the main guy here, along with Tyrese, with an open championship window if all the cap space that the team has now is spent well.
Yeah, I think it's listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm one of those guys. I was one of those guys that said, man, I'm telling you, with everything happening with this team, eventually you're going to lose Joel Embiid. He's finally going to say, look, I've given everything and it's just not happening. I still say their best chance to win was with Jimmy Butler. And I hate that didn't happen. That you decided to keep, it's not really to bias. I think people get that, a little confused. Indirectly, they kept Tobias. They didn't choose that. They didn't have a choice. They had to pay somebody. And after Jimmy wasn't here, they paid Tobias. I mean, it's as simple as that. To kind of save face. Joe checking in says, I think people like me appreciate Embiid's regular season stats, not making a huge deal because of their collective underperformance when it matters, which you alluded to. Yeah. You said that. I mean, that's what we all wait for, right?
Yeah, I think that's how it is at this point. I don't think Joe's, unique in that way. A lot of the people that I talk to, they'll appreciate if he goes out and drops 50 because it's a big game. But in general, it's so much of the attitude is just like, let me know when he does it in May. Let me know when he does it in June, which, it's fair. That's the way NBA players are judged, collectively. It's the way players are judged in this city. And I think it's fair to have a player as clearly great as Joel is. You need those accolades to really cement your case and your legacy. And I think that's really all that's missing. And I don't think, until that happens, I think that is kind of going to be the collective attitude of a lot of people, in the city for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Last one here from Adam, and then we'll try to close it out for you and give you some free time. Adam says, wait, I hit the wrong one. He says, Mike, what is your favorite Embiid moment since you've been covering him?
Oh man, that's a great question, Adam.
That's a loaded question right there. There's so many.
There is so many. So I mean, 3 come to my head immediately, but they all have different connotations. The coolest one, not knowing what was going to transpire immediately after, was Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semis in 01 against Atlanta when he came out with Triple H. That arena was nuts. That intro was awesome. The kid in me that grew up loving DX and WWF was freaking out. The fact that they went on to get completely spanked in that game, it was so disappointing. Like, it was such a 180 from how hyped that intro was and how nuts the arena felt and all the energy in there to by the third quarter when they're down by like 20 plus to this inferior Hawks team and how they were getting booed off the court. It was just like, but not knowing, like not including the game, that intro was awesome. Seeing him get the MVP award last year was awesome. Obviously, before another situation right before Game 6 that ended up being a huge letdown. And then the fight with Karl Anthony Towns, just the random fight in like a November regular season game when Ben Simmons actually ended up having Karl Towns in that headlock and they had the whole back and forth. That was was really entertaining that night. That one sticks out.
Yeah, that's great. I forgot about that one. I did not forget about the
That was
Triple H.
probably Ben Simmons' best moment as a Sixer. The Karl Towns headlock. That was
Yes, that's
his
right.
shining moment.
That's that's the first time you actually did anything for us. Probably the last time too,
Yeah.
man. No, listen, no disrespect, for Ben wasn't that guy, man. Adam says he was at the game with Triple H,
Oh
so
yeah,
I
so he
have to
knows,
ask you
man.
that.
It was nuts, and then like
Oh,
it was just so deflating how crazy it was and how hyped that intro was and everything. And he came out with the hammer or
oof.
the thing, and it was just like, whew. And
Well,
then
it was unexpected, unscripted, like nobody, like it wasn't talked about. There was no leaks, there was no boom, like nobody thought about
and
that. Are
no
you?
one else in the league
Oh,
would do that. Like no one else in the
yeah,
NBA would have it scripted that he would cut. Like Joel is just he's a showman,
he
as much
is.
as he's a basketball player. No one else would have done it, and it's just the fact that it ended up the way it did was just unfortunate for sure.
No, definitely. I will say he is a showman, but I am glad that he decided to kind of back off, on social media and just
Oh
let.
yeah, he's
I
matured
think
for sure.
that was him growing up, man. He finally
Yeah,
grew up. That's what it
yeah, he's
was. He
matured
finally
for
grew
sure.
up. Yeah.
Having a kid will do that to you, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When you have a kid, it makes you grow up super, super fast. I have to ask you before you go though. You just mentioned the kidding you with the. Are you still a wrestling fan now?
You know what, Tony? Unfortunately, I'm not. My combat sports fandom has shifted to UFC. So I'm a
Oh.
big UFC guy, but I do not watch. I don't pay attention to WWE or AEW anymore. Unfortunately.
Hey, listen, man. We all have our thing, right? I'm a huge I've never gotten out of it. I love it. We talk about it on the show, but UFC, man, that is. I'll tell you what, that I have a huge respect for those guys, man.
Yeah,
Like,
me too, man. It's crazy.
oh
Even anyone that even gets in there, it doesn't matter what happens. If you get in
nope.
there, props to you because you know you're doing something. That's crazy.
100%, man. 100%. Again, this is Michael KB at the real at the real Mike KB on X or Twitter, wherever you want to call it. 97.3 does an unbelievable job covering the 76ers. But Mike, before we get out of here, let everybody know, like, what do you got coming up? I know you're doing stuff every single day. What's coming up for you this week?
Yeah, well, this week we actually got a pretty busy Sixers home slate. I'm at all the home Sixers games, so I just got back actually like 20 minutes ago from that Bulls beatdown that we all just saw at the Wells Fargo Center, taking
Yes.
care of business with Joel back. I think they got the Knicks Friday night and the Jazz Saturday night. I'll be on ESPN 97.3 pre and post game for both of those. I'll probably have some articles up on their website. Like you said, I'm always firing off takes on. I don't call it X. I'm never gonna call it X. So I'm
I
still
mean, yeah,
still
I
rising
say
strong with
both
Twitter.
just in case because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Nah, yeah, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't flow off the tongue like
No.
Twitter. So yeah, I mean, if you want to yell at me, tell me I'm dumb, or agree with me at the real Mike KB on Twitter. But yeah, that's about it, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
I appreciate it, man. Like I say, I tell you, like I have Chris Franklin coming on in a couple days, and I've told him before. I said, listen, man, to be a beat reporter for not just in this town, but for any team, it's the hardest job in the world. People don't understand the crap that you guys go through and the long hours that you put in, and I highly respect it. I love what you do, and you're very engaging, with the audience. It's fantastic, man. You do a fantastic job. I really appreciate you hopping on with me.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it, man. Same to you. It's been fun. Have me back on sometime.
Yeah. Oh, listen, open invitation, man. Like, I love it. This is something new for me. On Monday to Friday, every night, 11 to 1. So, yeah, let's definitely get it together, and we'll get you back on as soon as possible.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, Mike. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. You too.
And there he is. The Michael KB at the real Michael KB, at the real Mike KB. I'm sorry, on Twitter. I'll tell you, man. Like I've said before, this is why I love doing this. Everybody brings on people, right? And you always hear the same people. And my whole point is, I want to bring on different people that should be getting their just due. Right. And Mike's one of those guys. Mike's been doing it for a while, man. Like, I'll be honest with you. Everybody just thinks there's only two radio stations, in the city of Philadelphia. Everybody forgets. And Mike's a guy, I can tell you right now, Been following him for years. He's not a hot take guy. He's a very unbiased guy. You guys know how I feel about that. There's no objective to him. There's no agenda. There's no premeditated argument. Mike is Mike, man, and he's great. I love, he's very responsive on Twitter. Like you said, I'm not going to call it X. We're going to call it Twitter. But he said a lot of great things, man. Again, and if you missed it, you go back and watch the replay. That interview will be podcasted by itself on the YouTube page. It will be a playlist just for interviews. Like I said, we had him tonight. Fantastic guest, very, very articulate too. That's what I loved. Very, very articulate. Very good with his words and his thoughts, his moments. I like that he talked about Joel in the facet of, those moments, right? Those moments. I like how he talked about, the team as a whole. Right, the team as a whole, that everybody thought they got garbage back, but these are also like very, very good players that they were able to surround this team. But also the fact that I agree with him, man. There's nobody out there. There's nobody out there to me, right? There's nobody out there to me that says I need to give up all my assets for this player because they are going to be a game changer. My man Foods checking in. What's up, Foods? He says 97.3 kicks ass, Mike Gill. I'll be honest with you. I've never even had a conversation with Mike Gill. I knew 97.3 because I was and still am. I know everybody thinks different things, but I've always been a Hunter Brody fan, and Hunter Brody got a start at 97.3, and now he's on WIP. Congratulations to him, man. He's getting the notoriety. Listen, again, Hunter's a different guy, man, but you need different. You need unique, right? Very energetic, very passionate. But here's the thing. This is what people, what kills me too. A lot of people, again, they mistake the passion and the energy for theatrics. I had Hunter on Sirius with me on the weekends, and he was unbelievable. I had the producers sending me, who is that guy? Very, very knowledgeable of the game. And again, we are in an industry where it's hard for new guys to push through. It is, right. They always stay with the same people. It's the radio business, right? They stay who they're comfortable with. Not many people jump outside the box, right? So, but again, that's why we have this kind of platform, which is great, right? Which is great. I get to talk with all you every single night. My man Rick checking in. Right away, Rick checking in, getting on Foods. My man Rick checking in. Great guy. Happy New Year, Rick. Happy New Year, Foods. My man David coming back. David is a historic guy, man. I love it. He says, Tony, Michael Jordan would have won another three-peat championship in 99, 2000, 2001, 01, and 02, man. Listen, Mike's my guy, Dave. Mike's my guy. Rick says nice, Rick. I haven't been in a game yet this year, man. I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna have to start going back. I was so disappointed. I had season tickets, man, and all my energy over the last 2 years to just see them get beat down at home in the playoffs, in game decide get this in like game 6, game 7 deciding series. I couldn't, man. I couldn't do it, man. But now I'm starting to get back in. He says it was incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year, buddy. You know that. To you, the fam, to everybody. Great guy, man. Great guy. Again, that's why I love doing this. People checking in. Always support, man. I really appreciate it. Food says it is 97.3 is underrated, man. 97 underrated. Listen, I'm a big Rich Quinones guy, a former 97.3 guy. Right? I like Rich. Rich a great dude, man. Doing some big things. He's on the Tony Bruno network now with my man Angel Martinez and company every single night, man. I mean, look, I just like grinders, man. That's what I do. I like grinders. I like dudes who grind, right? Because that's what this business is. This business is a grind, right? It's not going to be the same every night, right? You're not always going to have the same people. You're going to have a different audience. You're going to have different questions, and that's the case, right? And speaking of questions, again, this is HRS Late Nights. I am your host, Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're liking the YouTube page. Make sure you're following the YouTube page. And again, any support, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Twitter, is 100%, 100%. Very, very appreciated. And if you want to get listen, you call it. It's unfiltered, man. You call in live. That's the best thing about this, right? There's no hold times, right? There's no hold times. All you need to do, I post a link in the comments on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. I'll tell you how this works. Very simple. It's no video. It's just audio. You literally click it on your phone. Click it. Boom. Put your name and you're good to go. And you're live on the air, man. You're live on the air. And then we could have a conversation, or you can just comment away. That's appreciated as well. Food says the three of us, Rick, Rick, Tony, and Foods need to link up. That's 100% happening, man. But here's the thing, Foods. We can't go to Harrington's because that's the only place Rick goes. We got to go somewhere. We got to go somewhere Rick doesn't know. I know there's not many bars that Rick doesn't know, but we got to go somewhere that Rick doesn't know. I'm not sure where that is, but we go somewhere he doesn't know. Okay, that's what we need to do. My man Joe, check Joe. Happy New Year, buddy. He says more grinders, less muckers. That's the thing, man. Just grind. Like this whole thing's a grind, bro. Like I've been saying it for years. Like I've been doing this thing for 15 years. Like it's a grind. Like the amount of stuff that I've been able to learn from other people and from other individuals is invaluable, man. Like I say it all the time. It's a shame. I will say this. It's a shame that more kids today don't take the opportunity to learn. And I get it. Listen, I get it. There's a lot of people out there, they say free labor. But if you're passionate, like there's things, but listen, it's all about choices too, right? It's all about choices. I've had a couple options and I've declined both of them, right? Because I had to make a choice. Do I want to drive to Bala Cynwyd on a Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon and do a 4-hour show at 6:00 on a Saturday, and then do 2 hours of post-production at 8:00, get paid pretty crappy money, okay, but try to make a name for myself? Or do I want to coach my kids' soccer games and spend time with my family and start my own thing? So guess what? I chose the latter, and I'm glad I did, because those moments that I would have missed with my kids, I would never get back. They're vividly in my mind. They're etched in there forever, and I'm thankful for that I made that choice. But not everybody has to, right? Not everybody has to. Rick says, I'm up for it anytime, buddy. We keep saying maybe Tony will invite us to his studio. Wow, that would be interesting, man. The three of us on a microphone. I don't know. Rick loves Facebook Live. Now he's on TikTok all the time. Rick found TikTok, so now Rick's on TikTok. Every time I get on TikTok, there's Rick. Al says Tony's a grinder. That's how he got his name, Jigsaw. Listen, man, I did, man, I did. I'm not talking. Why not, Rick? Come on, man, you can talk. Mike says I'm gay. Let's do it. Like food, I don't know if I'd be able to calm Foods down, man. Like I don't know if anybody knows Foods, man, but this dude gets I can't imagine how he's been after this debacle with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got to be dying. He does. And here's a shocker. Rick says I'm there for the drinks. Of course. Like listen, I'm not even a drinker, man. Like that's the thing. I don't even really drink. Every now and then, but nothing crazy, man. It's never been there. Rick can drink my share, put it that way. But let's get back to, again, we had May says I have some great stories of Fuji growing up. I want to hear the Fuji stories. But what I also want to hear is I want to hear from you, the audience, about what you think is more important. Is it the head coach or the quarterback? Because I asked this, and again, I asked this in the beginning. It was a segue into the show that we had Michael KB on. Fantastic content dropping for us. Again, make sure you follow him at the Real Mike KB, 97.3 ESPN, doing pre-games, post-games, articles. You could see him on, obviously on the station. You could hear him live, and he just does a phenomenal job, man. So make sure you check him out. He said a lot of great things. I'll have that as its own segment coming up later. But when we get back to football, because we see in this town that there's something off. We know that, right? But I'm looking around the NFL and I'm saying to myself, as much as I always thought it would had to be the quarterback, right? I'm really starting to think that it could just be the coach, because how else do you explain what's been able to happen with some of the coaches in the NFL? You know, Shane Steichen's out there. He thought he was going to have Anthony Richardson, right? And guess what? Now he's got Gardner Minshew. Still finding a way at times to win, right? Still trying to find a way to win. Still finding that way. You got Antonio Pierce out there still figuring out a way to win or at least be competitive with Aiden O'Connell, right? I mean, there's so many. Mike Tomlin, even though I love Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's my favorite coach, man. My favorite coach. But again, at the end of the day, you look at what he's doing in Pittsburgh with guys like Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, right? My man Yvonne checking in. What's up, Yvonne? Great head coach with an average quarterback beats an average head coach with a great quarterback. Everybody in Philadelphia, let's think about that. So, Yvonne, unbelievable statement right there. Because that goes to everybody who says Jalen Hurts has regressed. Because everybody, Jalen Hurts, we overpaid. You know, we made another mistake, right? And you look at that great head coach with an average quarterback beats an average head coach with a great quarterback. That is all. Listen. I think Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. You could call me whatever you want. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. Okay, he's got an average head coach. You see a great head coach in Mike Tomlin with an average quarterback, right? Think about it. Let me ask this. Here's another one. Do you think if you take Kyle Shanahan away from the San Francisco 49ers, does Brock Purdy have the same success? I ask you that. Is Brock Purdy a great quarterback with a great head coach? Or is Brock Purdy an average quarterback with a great head coach? Think about it, right? Think about those scenarios. I mean, listen, they are, you know, there's very, very short list of great and great, right? When you think about it. Andy Reid is great. Patrick Mahomes is great. Is Zach Taylor great in Cincinnati? Right? Think about it. Is Zach Taylor great in Cincinnati? I don't think so. I think he's average. But he's a great quarterback in Joe Burrow when he's healthy. Right? Kevin Stefanski, great head coach. Average quarterback across the board. Think about it. Joe says, checking in, says, take out McCaffrey, and does Shanahan exactly? That's another good question. That's why I think I will say this: if it's not Lamar Jackson, which I think Lamar probably cemented his MVP reign this week. I mean, he's a phenomenal. Like what it's phenomenal. But if he didn't, it's got to be McCaffrey to me. If you think about, you know, who is the most valuable player to their team, right? Obviously, yes, Lamar Jackson, right? But Christian McCaffrey, man, Christian McCaffrey, like that dude, he's just built different. He's built different. Food says Purdy is a system quarterback. Adam says, I think it's a good quarterback that the players have his back on the field and off the field. Good point, right? Good point. My man David Checker said Michigan Wolverines will win this Monday night in Houston, Texas. Again, that's the other Harbaugh, right? I'm not a big college football guy, but David says Jim Harbaugh is in that. Wow. So you think he's taking over for McVay? That's interesting. That's interesting. I like that. I like that. Now, Avon says Purdy is a good quarterback, but Kyle puts him in positions to be better. I like that. Yes, I think he elevates him to that next level. Mr. Bigglesworth, what's up, Mr. Bigglesworth? Says Brock Purdy will be a generational quarterback when it's all said and done. Interesting. You know what? He could be. It's all about poise, right? Like when you think about it, some of the great quarterbacks of all time, we never expected to be great, were because they weren't flashy, right? They became these generational talents because they just were average guys, but they were that good. I mean, you think about it in the NFL, and I have to be honest with you. There are some very, very lackluster play in the NFL, but some of these quarterbacks we're watching play have just been remarkable. They really have. I mean, at times, I know everybody doesn't like Dak, but I think you have to give Dak his due. I know we're Philly and we're supposed to hate the Cowboys, and we have this jaded sense that Dak Prescott stinks, and he doesn't stink, right? He doesn't stink. He's got some phenomenal talent. Like, will he ever win the big game? I don't know. But again, very, 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 very good. Eric checking. Yo, Eric, Happy New Year, brother. I appreciate you checking in. He says, I think our team not all has forgotten the fundamentals of checkdowns, tackling, communication, which, like you just said, the coach needs to build a supporting cast of leadership. A team has to build a trust with one another. If AJ is not speaking, could that mean his input at a wide receivers meeting or team meeting just shut down or ignored? The word team starts in the meetings, the weight room, the practices. The coach having an open door policy to hear everyone's input, especially at a cutoff. I'm sure the next comment will be coming. But listen, I agree. I listen. I completely agree. I'm going to say this again to go all the way up to my first caller, Tommy Watkins, who asked, "Is Nick Sirianni on a hot seat?" Nick Sirianni, I am telling you, is coaching for his job. There's no and if or buts about it. None. There's none. And here's the thing. I was talking to my good friend, Mr. Coach Dave. Have you heard him on this program? You heard Coach Dave Dixon on this program. And me and him were talking today. And the first thing I said to him was, you have to look at how this whole situation has been able to play out. Number one, Sirianni looks spent. Like, I'll be honest with you, he looks absolutely exhausted. Exhausted. And I think he's exhausted because not that he can't figure out what's going on. I think he's exhausted because he's put so much effort into trying to appease so many different people, and it's not working anymore. And I think because of that, he's out, man. He's out. Foods, he says, Tony, what's your take of all this Eagles downfall? Again, that's what I'm talking about, Foods. I look at it as one thing I said a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of spent up animosity going on and a lot of bad body language going on. And here's two things that really stuck out to me. Okay. I'll say three things, Foods. Three things stuck out to me. Number one, the different style that I see, not on the field, but on the sideline with Jalen Hurts this year. The different approach, not getting anybody's face, not being very vocal, just sulking, just sitting there, disappointed, frustrated. That's different. Something's wrong with that. The press conference where Jalen Hurts talked about commitment. Huge. Huge. Commitment's a big word, man. Commitment's a big word. It's a strong word, especially when you're talking about the brotherhood of a locker room, especially in the NFL. You heard guys like Fletcher Cox come out and question other players. And then here's the thing that caps it all off to me. You have a young guy who I honestly think, give him 2 years, he's going to be a stud. I love Sidney Brown. I think he's going to be a stud. Right now, he's listen. Here's a kid who he's learning, man. He's learning. He's very passionate, right? He's learning, and he's going to be very, very, very good player, right? But the problem is when you have a young guy come out and talk about, make comments about that's what happens basically when you have lackadaisical practices, like the practice plays comes out on the field. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. I sit there to my kids on the soccer field. The first thing I say to them in practice is, okay, first thing I say to them is practice how you play, because it's going to carry over, right? And I get it. I know that everything's a country club now in the NFL, and everything's no pads and no 2-a-days and no hitting, and want to keep everybody healthy. But hey, remember something. Remember when Andy Reid was here and there were some issues with the team? And what did Andy do? Put the pads back on, brought the hitting back, went to those hardcore practices again, because he said the country club atmosphere isn't working. And I don't think Sirianni's that guy. You know why Sirianni isn't that guy? Because he doesn't hold any clout to Howie or Jeff. Andy did. So Andy did it no matter what. But right now, Sirianni, you could say what you want. Sirianni is just a fraction of what Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman want. And that's what he's going to do. So he doesn't have that authority. And one of the other things I think that a lot of people are missing here is Brian Johnson, whether you like him, whether you don't like him. I think he's being, listen, say what you want, okay? But I don't think this is all Brian Johnson, okay? I don't think it's all Brian Johnson. But the thing is with Brian Johnson is it's Jalen's boy, right? I am adamant to tell you that they wanted neither of these guys as their coordinators, right? That's why it took so long. All that PR talk about how we want to get the right guy, that's all crap, man. That was all crap. It's because they got turned down by multiple people, right? One of those guys, Vance Joseph, the defensive side, which I absolutely love. He knew right off the bat. He knew this was going to be a yes kind of organization. He knew that he was going to be ridiculed and micromanaged by above. And he's been in the league for way too long, right? Way too long to be able to take that and say, "That's where I want to be." And you know what he also didn't see? He didn't see any room for advancement. Just remember something, right? Everybody said that Eric Bieniemy made the wrong move, right? Everybody said that. Everybody said, why would you go to Washington? Why would you take the same position? Guess what? Because he knew that was his next shot at being a head coach. And look what's happening right now. Ron Rivera's out after this year. And you know what's going to happen. Eric Bieniemy is probably going to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders. That's what's going to happen. He went to the next opportunity. Vance Joseph wanted to go to an opportunity to where he could either showcase his skills, build his resume, or possibly be the next in line for the head coaching job of the team he goes to. He knew that wasn't going to happen here. And if it did, he knew he wouldn't be able to do it because he would be micromanaged by Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. Simple as that. That's what Eric says. The coach is a yes man with management. He was hired to be. Yes, that's why his press conference, his opening press conference, he acted like he didn't have any idea what to say because he wasn't being read what to say. Right? Think about that. It started from day one. Yes, Adam, they didn't want the Cy either. They wanted Vic Fangio. It's no secret. They wanted Vic Fangio. And that, oh, I don't even want to say it. But that Jonathan Gann, I can't believe he came here and beat us. We were up 21-6, and he still beat us. He's the reason why we don't have Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is the reason why the Dolphins defense was doing so well. We wanted Vic Fangio, but we couldn't get him because we thought we couldn't get a commitment from Jonathan Gannon. Joe says since week one, they admit they need to work. It's been worse on both sides of the ball. Offensive calls are weak, and a strong coach would have exactly a strong coach would have taken over play calls. He's lost, players lost trust in him. Simple as that. And Joe knows you don't get that back. You don't say, let's take an off season and we'll get it back. You don't. It's over, man. It's over. I hate to say it. In my opinion, and I could be dead wrong, but guess what? We all have opinions. And again, this is not hot takes, nothing like that. In my opinion, I feel the only way that Nick Sirianni is still the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles next year is if they win the Super Bowl. That's it. Because if not, I mean, do I think this team get the Super Bowl right now? No. They have too many deficiencies. You're not going to rectify that. Like Joe says, since week one, we're in week 18, man. Like, I don't understand. Like, what do people think? We're in week 18. Do you really, really think that they're going to be able to turn around that fast? No. It's broken. Now, I know they had a big meeting tonight with Jordan Mailata and A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown came out and said he's going to talk to the media tomorrow. He's got something to say. Listen, honestly, it's probably the best thing that could happen. The best thing that could happen is for A.J. Brown to speak. Honestly, it is. It's the best thing that could happen. Because, again, you need that leadership from one of your players. If that player is a guy that people look up to, if that player is a guy that people say, yeah, you know what? If AJ's doing it, I want to do it, then you do hold that much weight over a team, which means you need to speak up. You are doing your team an injustice by saying, I have nothing nice to say, because you're allowing, especially in this town, people to pick that apart. Now, obviously, him coming off and shaking his head and his throwing his hands up in the air in disgust is obviously a call to say, I told you so. Meaning whatever kind of input he has not been taken into consideration. Now, here's the theme of the week, right? Who do you think they would get as a coach if Sirianni is gone? And that's always going to be the interesting theme, right? If they get rid of Nick Sirianni, who's going to be that guy? I'll be honest with you. I'm done with the young guys. Like, again, unless you can pull a Kyle Shanahan, out of the woodwork, or you could pull me another Shane Steichen. I don't want nothing to do with like Mike McDaniel, or you give me the next John Harbaugh. Then we could talk. But until then, I'll be honest with you. I would seriously consider trading for Mike Tomlin. Yes, I said that. Trading for Mike Tomlin. Because, again, in order to get Mike Tomlin away from Pittsburgh, you would have to trade for him. And I think that Pittsburgh may be willing to look. This is a guy who's never had a losing season. This guy is very well respected. And players respond to him. Look at all the instances with George Pickens this year. And George Pickens responded. Whatever Mike Tomlin said to him, whatever was said behind closed doors, he respected Tomlin enough to go out there and produce after he did all those shenanigans, right? Joe checking in. Great point here. Lurie wanted to buy the Patriots. Remember, he is a Boston guy, right? Lurie is a Boston guy. Does he take Belichick as an FU, and can he work with Howie with power? That's a great question, because people are going to talk about that. People are going to talk about that. But here's what I would say, and see, Joe, if you agree with this. Again, this is HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're liking the page. Make sure you're subscribing. A lot of big things coming up. We talked to the real Michael KB from 97.3 ESPN earlier, talking Sixers. Had some great stuff to say. Right now, I know locked in Thursday night, 11:15. I have Chris Franklin coming on to talk about the birds, covers the Eagles for NJ.com, and now you're getting to hear him all over, which is fantastic. I may have a special guest for tomorrow night, and again in a little bit we're going to talk a little WWE and AEW. But right now, this is a great question from Joe, because the way I think about this, Joe, the way I think about Belichick is I feel like Belichick needs a team that's in win now mode. I don't think he gets young players to buy in. So I look at our team, and I look at this would have been the year they went all in, when they re-signed Fletch for the year, and Brandon Graham for the year, and Slay, and they restructured all these contracts, and they brought in Julio Jones, and they sat there and they said, we're going all for it this year. We're going to go all in. And I think that's what they did. And I think next year those guys are gone. And Belichick is going to come in here with a bunch of young guys, and I don't think that he can relate to those guys. So I'd be curious. And again, I don't know how that would work, because the earlier Bill Belichick, there's no way he could work with a guy like Howie Roseman. But later in his career, maybe he can work with Howie Roseman. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I want Bill. I know people are going to look at that and people are saying, "What are you, out of your mind?" Listen, I think Bill's spent. I do. I think Bill's done. I think energy wise, I think he's had enough. I do, and I think that you're going to get him. I don't think there's going to be new motivation for him here. I don't. Now, I think a guy like a Tomlin would come in here with new motivation. I do. And again, like I said, I mean, if there's, I don't know who that up and coming guy is. People want to talk about Brian Greasy. People, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Who's the coordinator who wants like $15 million a year to be a head coach or something? I forget his name. That's, I thought, was pretty interesting. Listen, he's demanding his price, right? He's demanding his price. He says, "Look, I am that good." He's confident. He's demanding his price. But I'm curious to see where this goes. I am. I'm curious to see where this goes. Because again, I think that even if you have, like, hypothetically, even if you want me to buy in that Jalen has regressed, I don't think Jalen has regressed. I don't. Listen, when the whole flow of an offense is off, think about it. I mean, you have guys running on the field, running off the field. Nobody knows who's supposed to be in the play, who's out of the play. All the handoffs and the RPOs look completely, like, they look all screwed up. They're all jumbled. They're all confused. There's so much confusion on the field. So you can never get in a proper flow. And somebody asked that to Jalen in the press conference about just getting into a flow. And he admitted, like, yeah, it's offense is flow based, right? Yes, it's scheme, but again, it's flow based. If you need the offense to flow, and if it's not flowing, then yeah, you're not going to be the same quarterback. But I look at the throws that he has made. I look at that throw he made in the Giants game to essentially save the game. I look at that throw. I look at those throws and say, that's Jalen Hurts. But number one, he's not having the time, and they're pressing. See, that's the thing too that people are not taking into consideration. That the Eagles, though, these players that were there last year, they're pressing now because they're saying like something's so off. I need to be this much better. I need to elevate my game that much more in order for this team to be successful. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we look at this scenario. And a lot of people want to say that he's regressed. But I think that's not the case. I don't think. Listen, maybe physically he got hurt and he's still been trying to find his way back. Maybe there's a trust issue. But at the end of the day, his skills will not diminish. His skills are still there. This is one of the hardest working warriors in the game, man. Like, think about that. He did not regress. He did not regress. Now, speaking of regress, you know, we had Michael KB on tonight, the real Mike KB on Twitter, and he talked about the 76ers. And, not guys that regress, but guys that have progressed, right? Guys that have progressed into a different style of player. And a lot of that has to be with Nick Nurse. Now, there's your coaching aspect. Joe Girardi goes. Topper comes in. We go to the World Series. You get a different energy about the team. Same players, different coach. We've seen this team excel in Philadelphia. We know they can excel. Right now, maybe it's just not the guy that is there to make them excel. It's as simple as that, man. It's as simple as that. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do agree that right now the hot seat is really, really hot when it comes to Nick Sirianni. I don't care what you've done. It doesn't matter. All I can tell you right now is Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job, and we're going to see how this all pans out. Now, that being said, we're going to transition. And again, if you want to get live on the line, click that StreamYard link. I'll put you right on, man. I'll put you right on because we're going to transition into our wrestling segment because we got to talk a little wrestling. Now, Adam will close out, says, how did it get bad so fast? I think because it just continued to carry over and was never properly fixed. And because he doesn't know how to fix it, Adam, he keeps trying so many different things. And every step that he takes to try to fix it, what happens? He loses more momentum in trying to gain confidence back in his team. And that's why it's just it's a spiral effect, man. It's simple. It's a spiral effect. It just it goes down and down and down this dark, deep hole, and you never get it back. You never get it back. And I think that's why it's gotten so bad so fast. Now, we're going to transition to a little wrestling talk. So if you are a wrestling fan, this is the segment for you. And I'm a huge wrestling fan. I am. Again, Tony Cutillo, HRS Late Nights right here on Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're following the network. Make sure you're following the page. You're liking, you're subscribing, all that good stuff. Comments keep coming. Again, if you want to get live on the line, the streamer link is posted. If you click on it, all you need is a phone, and boom, I can get you live on the air, and we can have a conversation. This was, to me, a fantastic week for professional wrestling. I am a huge wrestling guy. Now, obviously, I am always, first and foremost, will be a WWE guy. But I have never been so happy for somebody to finally get their just due when I talk about Samoa Joe winning the AEW title against MJF. So overdue. I cannot wait to see a title reign for Samoa Joe. When Samoa Joe came to NXT and won the NXT belt, if you remember, he elevated the game of so many different wrestlers. And I was very disappointed because I thought he was going to go to the main card and he was going to get a WWE title run, which he never got. I look at AEW as making such the right move of putting the belt around Joe, because not only is going to elevate the game, but he's going to be able to teach the game to the younger audience, the younger wrestlers. You're going to be able to show them how to cut a proper promo. Obviously MJF did that, right? But this is a guy that's been well respected in so many different federations. And listen, Joe has got the respect of everybody. He's not a guy that needs to command respect. He's a guy who gets it on his own, right? He's a guy who gets it on his own. So very, very happy to see him get his due in AEW. Yeah, Avon, you're right. Injuries kill, especially concussions, right? 2 back-to-back concussions, and he alluded to that in the press conference. He alluded to that in the press conference after the pay-per-view. He talked about taking the extra time, and you're right there. You saw in that press conference, whether you think it was scripted or not, you saw right there who Samoa Joe is. He right off the bat, first thing he started talking about is the younger talent. How much he wants them to look at. He said, hopefully people learn from that about me taking time and getting 100% back. When especially you talk about head injuries. CTE is all over, right? We hear about it every single day. And you have these guys in like GCW going through light bulbs and tables and barbed wire and just absolutely obliterating herself. Guys like a Nick Cage who basically died and was brought back to life, right? And is still wrestling today. But again, that's why I respect those guys so much for what they do in this craft. But again, you heard who the real Samoa Joe is in that press conference. He's a guy that is not going to kill young talent. He's only going to elevate them. And he's going to be a hell of an ambassador for AEW at a time, in my opinion, that they desperately need it. You have a guy at MJF. Say what you want. He's beat up, man. He's beat up. Kudos to him to see the devil thing. The devil was so, to me, disappointing. The whole Adam call, that was disappointing to me. I was really hoping for something a little different. Like I remember with the Aces and Eights, back in TNA, I was so excited to see, who was a part of the Aces and Eights. I was so excited, to see that, and it just didn't do it for me, man. Like the devil just thing didn't do it for me when I found out it was Adam Cole. But MJF has to get himself right. So I think this was a great time where you have all the stuff going on with Chris Jericho. You have, MJF trying to get well. The next guy in line, in my opinion, to be able to hold that company down and elevate it is Samoa Joe. So that was a good thing. Now let's get to WWE. WWE Day One. Fantastic. Fantastic. First of all, you see right now, you're seeing the transition to everything run by Triple H. It's in the promos. It's in the ring. It's with the matches. Like we're Friday Night SmackDown. Friday Night SmackDown. You're getting a triple threat match to see who goes on the Royal Rumble to face Roman Reigns for the WWE title, Universal title. You have AJ Styles. Unbelievable. Primetime talent. You have Randy Orton. And then you have LA Knight. That is a pay-per-view WrestleMania type of match you're getting for free on SmackDown. Again, Triple H, I talked about this before. Paul knows. Hunter knows. He was there when the Attitude Era was at its peak. He was there where you were getting those matches every single week on Monday Night Raw, on Thursday Night SmackDown. And now, not only do you see Triple H's stamp on the in-ring ability, you see it from the promos and the special scripts that they're rolling out. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm enamored by what's going to happen with the bloodline. I really am. This Rock versus Reign thing is going to be epic, huge, huge. But I'm like you saw it last night, and I tweeted this out on a Heat Ratio account. Make sure you're following at Heat Ratio Sports as well. First thing I said was there will never ever be another WWE superstar that will always command a pop like The Rock. I mean, San Diego was unhinged when that rock music hit, completely unhinged. And this dude was back, I think it was like September sometime, gone for a couple years before that. Doesn't matter when he comes back. He literally, no pun intended here, but he electrifies and captivates the audience. That's why he's The Rock. That's why he is, in my opinion, the most charismatic athlete of all time. You know, in the wrestling arena. It's simple as that, man. It's he just commands the attention of everyone. And you saw it right there. It was being teased. He teased on it on ESPN Game Day, and then he comes and he teases it, and he says, you know, that was a great segue, man. You know, he's hungry. He's going to go out. I don't know if you guys saw it, but make sure you check it out. It was a fantastic way to throw it in there. You know, when he specifically said, is it going to be number one? Is it, am I going to sit at a bar? Am I sit at a booth? Or do I want to sit at the head of the table? And that was it. That's all he had to say. That's it. Now, all of a sudden, you have Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, being advertised for SmackDown. Obviously, right? Obviously, he's going to respond. Right. But here's what I want everybody to think about. And I keep saying this, like, The Rock cannot win the belt. He can't, right? So, like, how does this play out? Like, does Roman win? Is that the final straw that Roman actually wins? And then do they push Cody to finish his story once Roman Reigns breaks Hulk Hogan's streak? That'll be, I think, SummerSlam next year or this year. And then finally, maybe at the Royal Rumble in 2024, you see Cody Rhodes finally win the championship. I don't know. I don't know where all this heads. But all I know is this is the most excited I've been about professional wrestling in a very long time. Rock versus Reigns will be absolutely epic. The promos, I never thought I would say that I would enjoy the promo between Rock and Reigns more than I did Rock and Cena. Never thought I would say it. But Reigns has gotten that good. Obviously because of John Cena's epic promo against him, right? Now, Adam checking in says he thinks Reigns wins. And so, see, that's the thing. Like, I can't, I just can't see the Damian Priest thing happening. There's no way he cashes in. If he'll win the title for off of Seth, but there's no way that he cashes in for the Universal. No way. I don't see it happening. I don't. Adam says, "What do you think of Judgment Day?" I love Judgment Day. I don't like JD McDonough. I think that's stupid. I love the R-Truth angle. Listen, I have a huge respect for R-Truth. And this dude's again, he is a lifer, man. Ron Killings is a lifer. He's been around and back again. He's been all over, man. He constantly comes up with a way to make the audience laugh and be a conversation. And that's all that they need. But this conversation for Rock and Reigns, this is going to be something that's going to be Tonight Show worthy. This is going to be something that is week to week going to be covered all the time. This is something, again, the lead up to WrestleMania for this epic match, it's going to be huge. It is. It's going to be huge. But again, you know, there's so many things. You have CM Punk come out about the title. I don't know, like Randy Orton, AJ Styles, LA Knight. Again, you look at back in the day, it was The Rock, it was Austin, Triple H. That's who really battled Kurt Angle to an extent, you know, to an extent. Alan says, I got our truth on TikTok. Listen, he dropped a little Jimmy line last night, too. I was cracking up, man. Well, I was cracking up, miss. Like, you're not seeing, shadows of people again. And then right away, everybody knew, is little Jimmy back? Is little Jimmy back? It was so funny, man. Like, I agree, man. I love our truth. I do. I love what our truth authors or offers to the segue or to each segment, I should say. But this is just the best thing about all this is just elevated the wrestling game to another level, and it's made people like AEW really think about their product and say, you know what? Yeah, I think that we are going to have to make sure that we stay on our game. I do. But Rock reigns. Who wins, man? Like that's the thing. Rock reigns. Who wins? It's going to be a great time this WrestleMania season. Obviously, going to be in Philadelphia, but to be able to witness the way they build this show, first Triple H production taking over, right? Take it over. I'm sure that's a reason why maybe Kevin Dunn was left because maybe he didn't agree with certain things. But listen, Triple H is saying, look, it's either my way or no way, right? Either do you want me to drive the ship or do you want another captain? Right? When you think about that. Adam says Reigns, Rock, Orton, LA Knight for the title. A four-way, right? A fatal four-way. When was the last time we had a fatal four-way, Adam? Yeah, I definitely see that. And again, think about I definitely see that. It's a great point. I definitely see something like that happening. And again, why is it happening? Because Triple H is at the helm, because that's what Triple H grew up with. The fatal four ways, the triple threats, right? The mixed tag matches. You'll see all that. There was a rumor with AJ Lee starting to train. Of course she is. Of course she is. There's definitely a mixed tag in the future for CM Punk and AJ Lee. 100%. And when Andrade comes back to WWE and Charlotte gets better, there's your mixed tag match right there. So I think there's a lot of things on the horizon, but it's 100% a great time to be a wrestling fan. Now, we had a fantastic program tonight. We're gonna get ready to close this out. We're gonna close out a little early. I want to podcast the interview, which I think was fantastic. It's the best. Listen, it's the best thing about running your own thing, right? You can start now whenever you want. For the most lights, it'll be 11 to 1. It could start a couple minutes late, could end early, could even go over. Right? There's so many different things that we could do. I got a couple sponsor announcements to announce next week, which is very exciting. Very, very exciting, which I can't wait for. If anybody out there, again, is looking for promo deals for any of the sports books to get free money, make sure you hit me up. Man, I have all the codes. I have those affiliate links to get you that free money. A lot of them, Better, Sleeper, Owner's Box, Underdog, max and match deposits up to $500. Man, like you put 20, they give you 20. You put 100, they give you 100. Right? So again, teach you how to do the no sweat bets to keep doing it, man. Keep doing it so you keep playing on the same $5 to $10. Adam says, I can't wait for WrestleMania, Raw, SmackDown, Phil, everything, NXT, everything's in Philly that weekend, man. It's going to be a fantastic time to be a wrestling fan. But listen, as always, Heat Ratio Sports Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. This is HRS Late Nights again every night, Monday to Friday, for the most part. Some Fridays I will take off depending on what the program states. But again, we're looking forward to Wednesday night. Tomorrow, well, that's actually tonight. We'll have another great program, different topics. I'm not sure what way we're going to go, but I always have a little historical look back Maybe we'll start doing years of teams, like David brought up the Expos that a couple of nights ago that got in some good conversation. But as always, man, for the support, it's much appreciated. I love doing this thing. It's going to continue to build. Thursday night, I have again Chris Franklin on talking some birds, man. Talking some birds. Adam, great show, Tony. Love the radio, so appreciate it, man. Something new, Adam. Something new. Can't wait to get more people involved and more people on. And again, speaking of that, if you want to get involved, if you're looking to build a show, if you're looking at a network to house your show on, listen, not only do we house your show, we help you promote it as well. We help you promote it as well. Where do you get that? Anywhere else? You get that here at Heat Ratio Sports. I'm able to utilize the wing of Rise and React Media to help you be able to promote and market your podcast. I could teach you how to do it, show you how to do it. We could do it here, a very, very small fee. Trust me, nothing like that's out there. I can guarantee you that. But as always, man, it's been fantastic. I look forward to more bigger and better things in 2024 and more HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo every night at 11 p.m. interest. So everybody, like I always like to say, everybody stay safe.